So, what is coaching? It all really begins here. With this entire training program, we're going to be unpacking what coaching is and how it actually works, how to grow your skills as a coach in a way that is more objective and more focused on reliable and consistent outcomes, as well as aligned with the International Coach Federation's expectations of what coaching is and the core competencies of what makes a coach competent and effective. But what is coaching as its core? If you ask a coach or a person that has carved out a place in the field of coaching, calling themselves a coach, calling their services coaching services, you will get a variety of answers because the reality is that it's still somewhat of a messy field. And there is no clear regulation on the terminology of a life coach, a coach, and therefore you'll get a variety of responses when you ask some people in the field, what is coaching? Now, I am aligning myself with the International Coach Federation's definition of coaching because I believe it is a very solid approach. I feel like it is all about the partnership of the coach and the client. It's not about the coach being the expert in the room. Instead, the coach is there to help the expert in the room, which is the client, get the most out of the experience and be more prepared for what they want out of their lives to get where they want to go and all those good things. But really, at its core, what is it? Coaching is oftentimes defined by what it isn't. Coaching is not consulting, where I am trained to be an expert in whatever field of business or whatever field of service or whatever it might be. I'm not paid to go into an organization and provide solutions to better understand what's going on, get as much information and perspective as I can so that I can turn around and provide answers. That's consulting. Coaching is not consulting. Coaching is not mentoring, where an individual is further down the path than the one they are working with, their mentee. Instead, a coach is not necessarily further down the path. I'm not of the perspective that the coach has to have their life together even better or be an even better performer than the person they're coaching. In fact, oftentimes the best coaches are those who are able to coach the people at the very top, knowing that that person can go even farther, not because of the coach, but because the coaching process will help them grow. Coaching is not mentoring. Coaching is also not training or teaching. I have a lot of experience being trained. I've got a lot of experience in the field of coaching. And in this entire program, I'm going to be doing a lot of coaching, or a lot of training. That's what these videos are all going to be about, is me spouting off my thoughts about what coaching is and my opinions, as if my opinions are the source of knowledge and truth about the coaching field. And yet I'm not a trainer or a teacher for my clients. I'm a coach. What the distinction there is, I'm not there to give them the information. I'm not there to pass on the perspective, and I'm not there to take the curriculum and to share it with them. I'm there to help them create their own answers. We as coaches are not advisors. While there may be moments in a coaching relationship and a coaching conversation where, a coach might offer a suggestion, an observation, maybe an advice on what tool or framework we could use in order to enhance this coaching conversation we are having or the relationship. Maybe every once in a while, a blank, like, here, if I could contribute my advice, here is what my perspective is. However, I want you to tell me what you think of that advice. Now, what's so critical here is the coach knows that at the end of the day, that person's got to make up their own advice, make up their own mind on what advice to follow, because there's hundreds of people telling them what to do. There's thousands and tens of thousands of messages out there on what they should do. They have to make a decision, and that takes willpower and determination and motivation and volition on their part in order to do something about their lives. And the coach, to give it too much advice, takes that volition away from the client. We're also not counselors. Counseling is extremely valuable, and yet it's often focused, and this is just a generalization, but oftentimes counseling is focused on those who are in a state below homeostasis. They're not quite in a place of health in their lives, and so they're getting to a place where they can focus more effectively. Whereas coaching, we tend to work with someone near homeostasis and challenge them. And in fact, we look for that peak stress experience that helps them push themselves even further in their lives. So we don't work with someone who is mentally unhealthy as a coach, because that is the space of therapy and counseling. Not all forms of therapy and counseling, mind you, but just in general, that is the field of counseling, and coaching doesn't go there. We look at forward movement in ways that emphasize the strength of the individual that is present and helping them push themselves even harder in a way that fits them really well towards whatever goals they're pursuing. We're also not friending. We're not there to be the person's friend. And at the end of an entire coaching agreement, it's okay if I never talk to this person ever again, because their success is not reliant on me being in their lives, which in our culture globally, I think today, that sounds almost like, I don't know, heresy, I think. I mean, this is a pretty spiritual loaded term, but it almost sounds completely countercultural heresy to say that they don't need me by the end of our relationship. But the reality is that's what the coach is after. We want them to grow into a better version of themselves through us working with them, because we've challenged them and encouraged them and help them with accountability, help them think thoroughly about what they want so that they get where they really want to go. And by the end of the whole journey, they say, "Coach, look at all the great stuff you've done in my life." And the coach says, "Hey, thank you, but you did the work. And I've seen you grow tremendously over these past few months. Well done. You have put in the work to make these changes, and you can keep going. Just keep going." That's how it should wrap up. Not, "Hey, will you please buy more products from me? Will you please buy more solutions?" We don't want to create a dependency on the coach. Now, as I'm saying these things, I really want it to be clear. All of these other fields have their place. All of these other activities, they have their place. Consulting, mentoring, training, teaching, advising, counseling, and being a friend. Like, all of these things are valuable, but they are not coaching. And even, I mean, some coaches utilize a multi-domain approach, you could say. There's plenty of great counselors that implement coaching into their space when the person is getting to a place of health. And it's a wonderful approach. But it is always very important to be crystal clear on what coaching is as distinct from other fields. But we haven't answered the question, what is coaching? So let's talk about what coaching is. The purpose of coaching is to help people get where they want to be in life. Think about where the word coach comes from. You think about the coachman with the horse and buggy. The coach is driving the horse, and the person in the back is, they're just along for the ride. It's kind of flipped. I don't know how the analogy is going to break down completely, but in that analogy or metaphor, the client is something between like the horse and the driver, and the coach is in the buggy or whatever, telling them encouragements and asking great questions and challenging this individual to drive themselves forward. I don't think that would go over so well in industrial England. But that's really what coaching is. It is seeing that the person we are coaching, they are the expert. They have so many great ideas. They have so much potential for success. They only need time to think, to process. So coaches are skilled in helping the client drive themselves forward, but they're not, a good coach is not some sort of awkward backseat driver telling them what to do. Instead, we utilize coaching skills to help a client see consistent success through the coaching experience. They They're able to better understand where they're going to be going, how to best get there, and what obstacles might get in the way that they need to overcome, and how to best address those obstacles. Now, coaching skills. I'm going to say this throughout the coach training, and I mean it wholeheartedly. The coaching field is, in my opinion, using the Pareto principle, it's like 80% skill-based, 20% knowledge-based. That's why this training program is so heavily focused on you watching video content and getting into class and me not teaching you hardly anything. We'll do Q&As because there's great learning that can happen in that kind of joint discussion. We'll do plenty of assessing where I give you my opinion and data on the recordings of your own coaching and things like that. But really, what's most needed is for you to practice your skills, because the coaching space is 80% coaching skills. What are those skills? A coach helps the client get where they want to go in life by asking great questions, powerful questions, questions that get at root causes, questions that seek to make more learning and awareness out of very abstract situations or ambiguous scenarios. We ask questions that maybe no one else is able to ask, willing to ask, or questions where, as an outside observer and as an outside party, they can answer these questions in ways they could never answer them in their own company, in their own family even. We are trained to listen. And this is one of the things that I always joke, like, it's hard to tell my parents what I'm paid to do. I'm paid to listen really well to my clients. That sounds silly, but when you think about it, how many people in your life really listen to you? And when you're done talking, they don't come at you with what they think you should do. They don't come at you with their opinion. They don't come at you with some platitude or some trite piece of encouragement that you could look up online for some like general bits of encouragement and inspiration. No, that person's just listening to you, and when you're done speaking, they're hanging on your every word, and they're asking you questions to help you even go further, to think deeper, to think and be more challenged, even more so, to share not only what's on your heart now, but to share what was kind of underneath all of that stuff, so that as you think these things through, as you're challenged, as this person's there for you in a way that's very safe, you're able to come up with a possible solution, next step, idea that gets you where you want to go, helps you create that next thing, helps you take that next step forward. That's what a coach does. That's a coaching skill. We also set a structure, and this is something that we're going to talk about a lot in the coach training, where the coach is trained to create a consistent structure that also takes into the account the individual uniqueness of this individual. We don't just ask the same questions over and over and over again every single session, but we do ask similar questions, filling up like buckets of information, so that as we fill those up, we know what this conversation is going to be about. We know the agenda or the agreement, what we're talking about here today. And there's certain phases of a coaching session that as you go into a deep dive or you get some sort of aha, well, you don't just keep digging, you do something with that. You learn from it. And then when you learn from it, you say, what do we do with it? And that gets to the final thing almost that we have. There's plenty of other skills that we will get into in more detail. But at its core, like, you do all this exploration, not for the sake of learning, but for the sake of acting and changing. So this learning, these deep questions bring up amazing ideas, amazing thoughts. And once all that learning is done, then we say, what now? How does this relate to what you wanted out of the coaching? How does this relate to what you wanted out of the entire coaching relationship? What do you want to change in your life? How are you going to be different going forward? What will you do by the next time we speak? How will you do it? How will you make sure to follow through? How will you hold yourself accountable? And so on and so forth. We challenge the client to be moving forward with whatever they're learning about themselves. And throughout this entire time, I might not even know exactly what they are talking about. I've worked with executives, and they've had to almost speak to me in code because they do not feel comfortable saying really sensitive things, maybe very large companies, and it's scary. There's a lot of weight on their shoulders, and we have this coaching session in code, and they have a breakthrough, and they have a plan, and it's changing their company and their team and their leadership. And I have no idea what that was about, but I know that the process worked. And that is the kind of coaching that is in this training organization. A consistent approach to partnering with the client, helping them drive their lives forward with success, and a growth of their self-efficacy, their self-respect and integrity, their volition and confidence and motivation in themselves. Thank you. Like I said, though, you might watch this video, you might get a good sense of what coaching might be, but we've got to practice. The rest of this training material is here for your knowledge, but 80% is skill. Get to practice. Thank you for coaching.